So before going forward, we encourage you to listen to our insight from a few back on something called the L curve, which they don't want you to know about. It's a secret key that unlocks the mysteries of the system. And in this insight, we give you another secret cipher, which over 70 million Americans have backwards because of how dumb they always vote, because it's the opposite of what is commonly thought. The L curve is a visual representation of the extreme misdistribution of wealth on the planet, as evident in third and even first world countries, in which basically 99.9% of the people have the minority of the money and 0.01% have the majority of the money. And if you've got 3 million, you're still in the 99.9%. If you go to Davos, which is a town in the Swiss Alps, which annually holds something called the World Economic Forum, where elements of the 0.01% of the world's richest meet, which you or I would never be invited to attend in the first place because we're not reptilian enough, joke, but pretend we were. The storefront marketing pitch is that the World Economic Forum brings together government, business, and civil society to improve the state of the world. What they're really doing is conspiring about how they can continue to consolidate their power via their interconnected networks while turning everyone outside of those networks into essentially a global slave class, helping themselves before the state of the world with some maybe tiny spillover that would anyway help the rest of the world. The one thing they could absolutely do over anything else is a very basic and simple thing which they will not do through their own will, and that is allowing sensible tax policy to be implemented on them. Poverty is a vicious cycle. When you're poor, it's hard to get out of that, and you get more desperate and do non-honorable things. When you're rich, your money makes more money for you via interest passively. Being middle class is the most realistic goal for most of the population, landing somewhere in between. We are an American who was born in the last 3 months of the 1970s. From World War II to when we were born, the US had sensible tax policies which built the strongest middle class in the world. Yet since we were born, the United States has gone so far down into funhouse mirror clown world with non-sensible tax policy, and the less free parts of the world have stupidly followed suit, to the point that now it's been going on our whole life. Specifically since around 1980, when President Ronald Wilson Reagan, 6 letters, changed conservative economic policy from only helping the rich to only helping the morbidly rich. Trickle-down economics, which should be called golden shower economics, which has created a new generation of godzillionaire oligarch robber barons and has been the conservative standard ever since. In our country, regressives say they hate government so much and have so little interest in using it to actually function on behalf of 99.9% of the people that all they do in an office is tax cuts and deregulation. That's the best they've got, mixed with vomit-inducing theocracy creep. But what they never tell you is that these things only really help the oligarchs. Deregulating or removing things such as the Glass-Steagall Act, Dodd-Frank Wall Street Reform and Consumer Protection Act, and abolishing inheritance taxes that create a healthy financial cyclical alchemical cycle within a democratic system. Spinning that reducing taxes stimulates economic growth, which is one of their many big lies, because those things disproportionately help corporate tax rates and high-income individuals. So here goes your cipher. Tax cuts, for the most part, are redistributions of wealth from the poor, middle class, and even some of the lightly rich to the morbidly rich oligarchs. Tax increases are generally redistributions of wealth from the oligarchs to the poor, middle class, and even some of the rich. Tax cuts, when given to everyone a little bit, but mainly catering to the richest 1% of society, steal your money to give to the oligarchs. Tax increases, when not done on 99.9% and only done on the richest 0.01%, have a healthy redistribution of wealth from the oligarchs to you. This is old news. It's been a long con historically enacted by conservative elements, which are the primary bad guy here because conservatism protects hierarchy. So in places like the UK and US, the populace is being conned by cons who claim they are helping you, when in actuality they are stealing your money. When you hear a politician wants to cut government waste and taxes, go 1 micron deeper and ask, primarily on who? And you'll find they never want to do so on the military, but will surely do so on social service programs, while also saying things like, we're going to give you maybe a $500 to $5,000 tax cut, but then bundled with that, we're going to give this oligarch at minimum a $500 million tax cut. So there goes your wealth redistribution. And if you actually look at what they do and not what they say, you will find that they are attempting to redistribute wealth from you to an oligarch when all they really need to do to raise capital is to tax oligarchs alone. And the proof that they are oligarchic puppets is that they never do that and in fact do the opposite of putting oligarchs in charge of government sectors, just like in Russia. So the simple solution is to roll back every tax cut since the 1980s, which would not affect 99.9% of society and only raise the tax rate and inheritance taxes on oligarchs. And in the United States, with our inferior binary two-party system, the ironclad evidence to prove that all Republicans and most conservative corporate Democrats are puppets for the oligarchs is that they will scream from the hills and lie through their teeth that anyone who attempts to do so are their old talking points of being Maoists, Marxists, or communists, with zero acknowledgement of a balanced center. But through the loudness and noise, actual sensible tax policy is to increase taxes on the morbid wealthy and redistribute that wealth back into society. Non-sensible tax policy is to cut taxes on the morbid wealthy and increase taxes on working people. In a previous insight, we gave a Lord of the Rings metaphor, so to extend that, think of extreme conservative to the point of fascist elements as the financial Nazgul. Or to throw out another metaphor from classical literature, Robin Hood would of course steal from the rich to give to the poor. They have been stealing from the poor, especially the middle class, and even some of the lightly rich, to give to the oligarchic, morbidly rich for coming up on half a century. We, and 99.9% of society, should prefer a kinder version of Robin Hood's original way.